Hey, Karen.
How's it going?
It's going pretty good.
Good, good. I hope I'm not interrupting anything. I recently did some analysis in Earth Engine, and I really want to share it with a bunch of people. Can you help me?
Absolutely. Yeah. I was just about to teach a class on using Earth Engine apps and creating apps and sharing them with people.
Awesome. Oh, okay. I'd love to join you. But I've been teaching myself how to cook during quarantine, watching a lot of YouTube videos. So it would really help me if you could use a cooking class analogy, and that way I'd be able to remember it better.
I think we can do that.
Okay. Awesome. Cool.
Do you want to start?
Yeah, I'll introduce myself. Hi, everyone. I'm Karin Tuxen-Bettman, and I'm a program manager on the Google Earth Outreach team. While I have a GIS and remote sensing background, I'm not really a coder. I consider myself more of a code modifier. So I really rely a lot on code samples and examples and different tutorials, just like this one. Over to you, Mike.
Hi, I'm Michael DeWitt. I am a software engineer on the Earth Engine team. I've worked on everything from the Earth Engine backend, doing deep image processing algorithms, all the way through the Earth Engine front end and Earth Engine apps. So I've written a bunch of apps, and hopefully today we can share some fun recipes.
Awesome, cool. All right, let's get started.
Yeah. So today we're going to cover just the basics of what is an Earth Engine app. We will get our ingredients ready and have all the necessary bits. We'll talk about the step-by-step recipe to put everything together, and then we will pull our application out of the oven, ready baked and good to go. So the first part of that is just covering what is an Earth Engine app. So Earth Engine apps are dynamic user interfaces for publishing and sharing your Earth Engine analyses and results. So really there's a lot baked into that. The first part, dynamic, is important. So dynamic means that these interfaces are clickable, they're adjustable. You can provide people with all sorts of widgets and interactivity baked into the app. On top of that, publishing and sharing. So publishing is really just the process of releasing your app into the wild. You can share it with whomever you want. You can share it with groups, you can make it private. But really it's about giving the power of Earth Engine and the code editor to folks who traditionally have not been Earth Engine users. So folks who want to see the results, but are not necessarily going to write Earth Engine code. So there's some confusion. We'll just talk about the different parts. The code editor versus Earth Engine apps. The code editor is where you make Earth Engine apps. So it's really the Earth Engine apps cooktop. This is where you stitch together different widgets, different analyses. You can use all the different parts of the code editor, the scripts, pane, the inspector, etc., to generate views and interactive widgets that you then push to Earth Engine apps.
Okay, so let me get this straight. The code editor is your cooktop where you build everything, you cook it. And then when it comes out of the oven, that's the apps which you share with the world. That's what you put on the dinner table for everyone at your party.
Exactly that.
Okay.
So we have a couple examples of delicious dinner party fare. So here's a fun one from Xander Vendor. So this interface goes along with a paper that he published. This is talking about urban greenness and how it relates to income and race in South Africa. So this is an application. It was linked to directly in his paper's abstract. And we're super proud of, this is exactly the kind of impact that we want folks to drive with Earth Engine apps, so providing direct interfaces with publications. Another great example here is also from Xander, air pollution and how it relates to COVID-19 lockdowns. So this is, again, just a different set of widgets, different set of views. It looks totally different, and it goes alongside another paper. This one, I believe, was published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Science. So pretty cool stuff.
That's awesome. And I really like how this app uses side-by-side maps to show before and after and different comparisons. I have to add one of my favorite Earth Engine apps is this one. This group, who I believe includes yours truly, right, Mike? This is for your
Correct.
app, right? Nice. Awesome. This
Don't
is
embarrass me,
my
Karen.
favorite. Yeah. One of the things I love the swipe functionality, but I also love that it's embedded in a website. So it makes it even easier to share and put other links on the page.
Yeah, sharing is a big part of Earth Engine apps, and there are a bunch of different ways that Earth Engine apps can be shared. Um, you can share with the world, so you can publish an app, and I'll walk through some of these steps later. But you can publish an app directly to the Earth Engine app website, share it with anyone. You can share it privately, so to a select group, a Google group. You can embed it on a website, so you can make a quick site and drop it right in there. I have a whole guide on that. And you can link to it from publications, just like those couple of examples that we saw. So when we're cooking, we'll have a handful of different interfaces here. So these are our different ingredients, our different cook surfaces, and really the recipes that we'll need. So to get started, you'll need a code editor. Load it up at that link. You'll need some Earth Engine data and some analyses on top of that data, and you'll need some UI elements. These UI elements are the bits that enable interactivity in your Earth Engine app.
Okay, fantastic. So I'm going to go and work on getting some of these ingredients together. Why don't you show us how to cook, and then we'll come back and see what I can do.
Yeah. So here is a little tasting menu that I've prepared for Earth Engine apps, and in particular the Earth Engine UI API. So we talk about that. It's the user interface application interface. So it's a bit of a mouthful. We tend to call them apps widgets or apps knobs because they're little knobs that you can turn on the page. Here what we have is just a very simple tasting menu, and really I can show you a quick cut of the final product. All this is kind of a charcuterie board, a sampler of the different outputs and the different interfaces that you can use. So in the next couple of minutes, I'll walk through how to make something like this, and really I hope to give you an understanding of how really to read other Earth Engine apps examples and how to structure your own Earth Engine apps code. Additionally, hopefully you'll have a sense of the different sliders and the different fun things that you can do in the UI API. So getting started, and we'll provide a link to this separately. But really, this is a sampler in the code editor. So we have a script, and we go through several phases when making a sort of an apps-shaped script. Just like doing regular Earth Engine analyses, you write all your code here in the code editor pane, but you do use UI widgets. So these UI widgets here are just with the rest of the Earth Engine library at the bottom. These refer to anything in the user interface. So anything you can point, click, touch, view, these are UI components. And there's a whole bunch of them we'll walk through. So here we construct a bunch of components. Panels are the fundamental building block of how the UI world fits together. Everything lives within a panel. So here I construct a root panel, and I have some child panels associated with it, the title, controls, etc. This roughly corresponds to the structure here. Then we do a bunch of configuration. Here I'm building a bunch of UI components. So these are just simple arguments with some dummy placeholders. There's no structure here yet. We've just added them as elements. We do this for the map panel and the output panel as well. And then finally, we get to, penultimately, we get to styling. So this is where you're sort of adding spices. This is where all the flavor comes from and where your app starts to get exciting. Style is kind of different from standard Earth Engine components. Because all of these are client-side, you tend to use more client-side things. So this uses CSS, cascading style sheets, which is kind of it's a web programming language and set of functionality. You don't really need to know all that. You just need to know the set of maybe 20 different arguments that you can make to style widgets. So here I have my style sliders and panels, and this is just about placing widths and heights. Get everything to taste good. Finally, we stitch everything together. We compose the things using just nesting. So we add our panels to panels, and we're pretty much done with the skeleton. So this is the crust of the dish, the base, the pasta. This is what we're going to put everything on top of, all the behaviors and data. These behaviors and data are super simple. This is exactly the kind of stuff that most people are using Earth Engine for all the time. So these are things like analysis layers or adding some interactivity. The one tricky bit is that they use callbacks. Callbacks are in my opinion, the toughest part to understand, but they're not too hard. All it means is a function that you pass and you say, call this when a certain event happens. So here we have on click of our reset button, and it performs some certain operations. So really it's just kind of one level of indirection, but it makes it pretty easy to wire things up. So this is kind of a long script, it's 175 lines. But really, I wanted to give a sense of what it looks like to work with a bunch of different components, and then they're wired together. So here you can see every time I click this button, we get output in our output panel. You can see in my URL bar, we're changing URL parameters. These are things that you can read and write live to store a small amount of data. Sliders are interactive. There's a lot of wiring that happens here. And this is pretty much all done in just the last 50 or so lines of this script. So in the panel, and I can show you the code for this, every time I click a point, we get a new thumbnail, which is the most recent Landsat scene for that image. Your application is probably going to do something richer and more exciting, but this was just a tiny amount of code to write. The standalone map, use the drawing tools. When a drawing event happens, create a thumbnail and set that thumbnail on the page. Yeah, so that's a walkthrough of the UI API.
Mike, can I ask you, can you share this code with me and the rest of the people watching? Can we put it on the resources page?
Absolutely, yes, we'll do that. I have a link to the script. I'll also link to it in the app itself, so
Great.
People will be able to see exactly how to get to it. Talking about publishing apps though, so when I want to share an app, basically I'm just sharing the bottom half of my screen here. So we have the code, I have my apps, and I can publish, choose a new app. So I fill out a name, I choose a cloud project. So a cloud project is something you have to configure before you can publish your apps. I have one just called Earth Engine Michael, EE Michael. This is the phase where you can choose to restrict it to a particular Google group. So you can see it presents the option to restrict your group. I'm going to make mine public just so people can see it. And then you can choose to upload an image, etc. I've already published the app here. So users Michael tasting menu, that's me. I have a nice image here that this is, my house had a nice charcuterie board. I thought that fit the theme. So this is my Earth Engine apps page. So I'm user Michael. So here we see Michael, users, earthengine.app. Everybody who has an Earth Engine account has a page like this that they can activate and publish apps to.
Awesome.
Here is the tasting menu app that I published, and you'll see when we follow it. I'll trust my internet connection here. The page loads, and we get exactly the app that we created. So we can click, and we can reset, and we can do all the behaviors. We can use the slider panel. We have our chart. Everything's in order.
Nice.
I do just really quickly want to show folks how to get to more documentation. So I pointed over on the side to the UI list of functions here. You can see all the different bells and whistles that we put on over here. Additionally, if you click this question mark in the code editor, you can see a link to the user guide, the Q&A site. The user guide in particular has plenty of information about developing Earth Engine apps and user interfaces. Yeah, I should say that I hope that this gives you a good idea of how to read example Earth Engine app code. We have a bunch of examples here on earthengine.app about how to, these are just simple sort of toy examples, but they're useful. So they show off some different things. I can show our linked maps here. All of these have code snippets available. So this app just shows a view of Sentinel-2 in different band combinations. But all of these example apps have links to source code here, so we can load the source code and read through it.
Awesome.
One more place, just while I'm quickly plugging things, I talked about sharing and embedding. So this is an example of a page that I helped develop. This is intertitle.app. We went and bought this .app domain name, and this is all about a paper that shows intertitle analysis and intertitle areas. So this is a whole Google site with a fun URL that embeds this Earth Engine app. So this is all the interactive power of Earth Engine right inside this simple app, simple page. I did start to finish one of just experimentally seeing how fast I could go from Earth Engine app to full website around it. And it took about 15 minutes to buy the domain name, set everything up. And I wrote a little guide here. We'll add this to the links list as well.
Awesome. That's so great. Okay, so I think I'm ready to share what I've learned with you to show you how the cooking class worked, I think. Here I have all of my ingredients. I have my code editor up. As you can see on the left-hand side, I took your advice and I looked under scripts and I found a really good one for a split panel. And I basically used that code and plugged in my own data. Well, this is actually not my data. It's the European Space Agency's Sentinel 5P Tropomi data of nitrogen dioxide. And I made two different, I styled it in two different ways. One is before and one is after. And I created this split panel showing the 2 weeks before August 28th and the 2 weeks after August 28th. This is, of course, the California wildfires, that some of which are still burning. I thought it was really interesting to be able to look at the changes before and after and be able to really visualize the data before and after. And then I took your advice and I went up here and I clicked apps. And I created a new app. I named it California NO2. I'm using my Google Cloud project. I even gave it a screenshot here. And then I clicked publish. And because, you know, a true chef never has to wait for the oven to work, I am going to show you my finished project, which is already published and created, which I did earlier so I could show you it right out of the oven. So with that, I'm done, right?
That looks delicious, Karin.
Thank you so much, Mike. And thank you, everyone. This has been really fun. Thank you for walking us through this, Mike.
For sure. Bon appetit.